Okay. Center of the phone? Yes. Okay. Sick. My name is Sam, and I am going to have this episode of what maybe will be a series. Maybe this is just a one-off, one night, one time only sort of thing. Basically, my plan is to look at an album, talk about how it was made, the credits on the album itself, go through why I'm talking about this particular album, what it means to me personally, as well as breaking down each song one at a time, like lyrically or sonically, going through themes that I just happened to pick up on when I was listening to it myself. And then I'm also gonna like include little clips of the artist talking about the album itself, kind of just throwing in research. What credentials do I have to talk about any of this? Another great question. I have a BA and I have an MA. My BA is in communication, design arts and technology with a minor in theater. So that means I am insufferable when I talk about things like this. And on top of that, I have a Master of Arts in communication. Woo! With a focus in mass media. Yeah! And I have ADHD. So you guys are in for a really sweet treat. You guys are in for a sweet treat. Everybody buckle up. Everybody put their seatbelts on. You probably already read the title. And the album that I'm going to be talking about today is The Side by Joe. I bet you're wondering, Sam, why this album? And I'll tell you why. So hold on, let me get my thinking cap on. I had the pleasure and privilege to see Joe open for Tame Impala on the Deadbeat Tour for night 2 of Nashville. I went with my friend Lainey, and I just had such a great time. Joe was so good. I've been a fan of Joe for a very long time, admittedly longer than I have been a fan of Tame Impala, but Tame Impala was so good. Kevin is so good. Tame Impala is so good. What inspired me from that experience to talk about this side, it just really reminded me of how great of an album this side is, especially with Joe, as he should, getting more attention, especially with The Crux and The Crux Deluxe, and of course End of Beginning blowing up. You take the man out of the... And when I'm back in Chicago... Okay, I gotta stop. I remember very vividly waiting for the release of this album because at the time, all we had was 2020. All we had was Roddy, Chateau, and I was yearning. The people were yearning for more Joe music. So when this album finally came out, it delivered. I also related to a lot of the themes that I am going to talk about, so yay! I'm also taking care of my voice. I'm drinking green tea out of my Saturday Night Live mug that I got from Studio 8H. Okay, that's irrelevant, but we're gonna keep going. So, who made the album? When was it released? Decide was written, produced, and mixed entirely by Joe Keery and Adam Tyne. Adam Tyne is a music producer based out of Houston, Texas. And in the research that I did, this is not their first collaboration, which I find really cool. Adam Tyne actually helped Joe produce The Crux and The Crux Deluxe, and Adam Tyne has helped Post Animal with some of their music production. Post Animal is also the band that Joe Keery was in and then had to leave because of like Steve the Hair Harrington, and then he recently kind of rejoined the album with Post Animal's most recent album, Iron. Go listen to that. Post Animal is really great. Moving on. Decide was mastered by the mastering engineer Hiba Kadri, based in Brooklyn, New York. I looked her up and she's incredible. Some of her credits include Bjork, Sade, Gorillaz, Roger Waters. Like, guys, there's so Hayley Williams, like, there's just so many, like, and also Sade. It doesn't just stop there. She has also mastered the original soundtracks for film. Oh, and you might be asking yourself, Sam, what are some of the movies that she's helped master? Oh, I don't know. The Odyssey, Nosferatu, The Northman, Midsummer, Jackie, that was nominated for an Oscar for Best Original Score in 2017. So when I saw her name on this album, it adds so much to why this album is so good and does deserve more recognition beyond End of Beginning. Just as a whole, this album is just so cohesively great. It is a great album.
When you talk about it being production heavy, tell me more about why it was so production heavy back then. Was it because you didn't have a lot of time? Was it because you just wanted it to kick back and just, you know, still be part of a hobby?
It was because we were doing it during the pandemic, I think, mostly.
Okay.
It was also coming off of, like, working, you know, it's funny, every single thing that you do, I feel like every artist feels that way, is a reaction to the thing that you had done before.
Yeah.
And I felt like I really wanted to just, like, go deep in on production. And like I said, it was the pandemic. Me and Adam, we were working remotely and, you know, start these ideas and then finish them online together. So yeah, that's kind of how that thing came to be. It was like a product of its circumstances, I guess.
Do you feel like you're a better songwriter now?
Yeah, I'd like to think so. But you always still got to remember to get out of your way.
How do you do that? I mean, it's pretty...
I don't know. Because there's a fine line of, like, you want to follow your instinct and you want to... But I do think that there's a certain point where you're like, okay, let that rest. Or, like, that might be done. Like, you might not have to re-record that instrument. Maybe the kind of way that it is actually the best way. But how do you know? It's really just all your taste and trusting the people that you work with. And yeah, I still feel like I'm figuring out how to do that.
The album itself is about 36 minutes. There are 13 tracks total, and it was released on September 16th, 2022. What I found interesting, because I was trying to remember before I looked anything up, just what were some of the singles that were released in anticipation for the release of the album. And I remembered Change and I remembered Gloom, but Figure You Out and Half-Life were also released ahead of the actual album release, which I thought was really cool. Also the D-sides, Ugly Fisherman and Listen, those in itself weren't released with Decide, at least I don't think, but they're definitely so good by itself, just as almost like a deluxe Decide thing. In preparation for this video, I, of course, listened to the album again, like I really needed another excuse to do that. A lot of the themes that I picked up on for this particular album, and just the more that I was listening to it, is kind of that feeling of evolving and like metamorphosis almost. You know, that moment that I feel like a lot of us come to in our early 20s where we can feel ourselves almost separating from who we are or were as a child, feeling ourselves step into the future as who we anticipate we're going to be as adults. Hence why I imagine the album's name is Decide, kind of deciding like, okay, are you actually going to go with the flow of this change? Are you going to follow through, or are you going to stall it, stay in place? Then there's also being in your 20s or just growing up in the modern age of social media and the inevitable impact that that does have on how you view yourself and how you present yourself, whether it's online or in person. But it's basically asking the question of, will you be somebody who kind of curates your personality to fit what people expect of you, or will you step into the world and just let the world shape you? Yeah. I was jotting these notes down as I was listening to the album, so a lot of these are just very sporadic. Like, this one is in all caps. How will you live in a world that seemingly has all the answers for you? Will you take those answers at face value, or will you find your own answers? Ooh, heat bars. Hey, Future Sam, I mean, cut that. Cut that. Just delete. Delete. Yeah. I'm putting myself in timeout. Oh my god. Basically, all of the themes that I picked up circle around the idea of deciding for your future, deciding for yourself, deciding how you're gonna interact with your friends, with your family, how you're gonna approach love, especially with the lingering presence of social media, being online. There's an interview of Adam Tyne and Joe Keery sitting down talking about how they made Decide kind of sound cohesive, or what made it sound cohesive, how to make a cohesive album, whenever they were talking about The Crux and The Crux Deluxe, but inevitably they did end up talking about Decide.
They do all sound a lot different, but the way that we went about making them generally was, I think, the same. You know, in this live kind of studio environment, you know.
Yeah.
Pseudo live, because we're not necessarily like playing it live all as a band, but we are building this thing together.
Yeah.
Live.
I think it was when we were making Decide, we kind of had the unlock of across an album where sort of late stage in the album process, we were swapping, you know, taking a step back and going, oh, we have two, you know, synth pad sounds that are very similar, but they're different. Why don't we use the same?
Yeah.
Let's go back and swap that in, get a new performance. Let's use the Prophet on both those songs, you know?
So
Yeah.
That sort of helps, I feel like, tie things together. Or, you know, finding like reverb characters, like,
gated,
I feel like
a
reverb especially is such a, you know, part of the costume, like to use your expression of how the vibe of something, and, you know, using similar reverbs across different songs.
Mhm.
I kind of already had the thought of, wow, there's a lot of synth that's used in this album, but Joe Keery and Adam Tyne kind of like confirming that just made me think about it more, because you have like the opener, Runner. Runner is the opening song of the album, and it starts with love and hate. I'm reading the inside of the vinyl. Love and hate decide, money grows and dies, people never change, but I have to try. And then that repeats, and then we have take it on the chin, never gonna win, turn the other cheek, and I take it on the chin. Again, that repeats. You're going to stumble and fall. It's natural to fail as a human, but the real question is whether you'll take the first step to follow through, or if you're just going to live with the potential of what could have been. When Decide came out, I was 20, about to turn 21, so I was already going through the inevitable late teens, early 20s crisis of, I don't have my life figured out, and I'm never gonna have my life figured out. The world is ending for me. And hey, here to confirm a couple years later, still have those same thoughts. A bit better at controlling them now, but at the time, it was like, where are these thoughts coming from? Why am I stressed all of the time? Ah! Oh, and then it was also anxiety. Neither here nor there. The other thing I feel like that with Runner is, like, at the end of the day, you're always going to have yourself. That's one thing that is pretty much going to be consistent for life. You have friends, they come and go. You might have a really good connection with your family, or you might have to cut them out of your life. But no matter where those relationships, where those friendships go, where they begin, when they end, the one thing that's consistent is you. You're always gonna have you, and you're, like I said, you're never gonna have control, but you can at least try and decide to follow through with the things that you are passionate about. And I think that Joe really is trying to say that you should at least try, because in whatever narrative that is being told in the album of Decide, I feel like it's from the perspective of somebody who is on the precipice of, do I go with it? Do I just stay in place where I know that things in theory won't change? I'm afraid of change, and I don't want things to change. But if nothing changes, then what does that mean for the rest of my life? There's the lyrics in Runner where it's like, those that will, those that won't, you're lying to yourself about control. And there's a few other lyrics, but then it ultimately ends in, why try? And then that brings us to the next song. I freaking love this song. It is honestly like top 5 Joe songs. The rhythm and just the guitar, ooh, I eat it up. I'm eating it with a spoon. It is so good. And I like how it follows after Runner, because you have like, you know, like the synth is almost like, it almost, like, at least for me, it almost gives me that sense of like anxiety of like, oh my god, okay, time is always counting down. Like, I'm on a timer that I set for myself. Nobody else gave me this timer. I set it for myself. And then you have Gloom, where it's almost like the person that, you know, was telling that perspective from Runner, at least in Gloom, is like, actually, I don't care. Don't care about control, don't care about life, don't care about society. It sounds like the feeling of going out of your comfort zone for the first time, where it's like, wow, why didn't I do this sooner? The feeling that Gloom is giving off, at least for me, is kind of the response to feeling like you're trapped with your life and the indecision to change, where sometimes you do just have to make an irrational decision. It's part of growing up. It's part of being in your 20s. You're gonna mess up. You are going to mess up so much, but it's not about dwelling with those mistakes. It's sort of the feeling of, okay, that happened. I did in fact do that. I feel like there's a quote somewhere that I'm thinking of. Why am I thinking of Noah Centineo? No,
what you've done, but what you do with what you've done for others.
TLDR, the mistakes that you made in your late teens, early 20s do not define who you are as a person, to some extent. If you're racist in your late teens and early 20s, get with the program. That's not what I'm talking about here. Lyrically, Gloom begins, and now I'm ready to go. I'm sick of hanging out, and now I'm ready to go. I told you that our friendship couldn't handle much more, but then you went behind my back to settle the score. So goodbye. Song, 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 song. It ends with, you know, the I need to walk my dog, I'm ready to go. Like, I feel like it's all of these thoughts piling up, one on top of the other. So I feel like that's kind of the essence of Gloom. Moving on, now we have Half-Life. Half-Life, I feel like, is the first song on the album where we kind of start diving into the theme of living in the world of social media, being so heavily online for the most part, and what that's like. what that can do to your persona. Struggling with the identity of who we are outside of the online world versus who we are on Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok. And sometimes on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, even those are like 3 separate identities. It's when it kind of slows down and it's almost like the conscience of the person that this kind of perspective of Half-Life is coming from, where it's sick of living in the old days, mind burdened by the old ways, keep trying to forget about it, watch a video, don't fret about it, you don't need it, why you want it, I don't see you moving on, kid, I don't see you moving on, kid, no, I don't see you moving on. That is one of the consequences when it comes to being a person online, especially, you know, from the perspective of Joe Keery, when it's like, I imagine when you are a very successful, and in Joe's case, like an independent artist, you unfortunately do have to have some semblance of a persona online, but there is that consequence of letting hate comments get to you, kind of criticize the art that you have been putting out, how that can affect and like how you can take it to heart a lot of times. But that's like the sonic blow up of, now I let these people, I let these people dig their hooks in me, and I consider myself a fool plugged in Half-Life. So, love Half-Life, love her. Oh, was that Fool that was mentioned? Oh, that brings us to the next song, Fool.
That's not right. There's a person behind those eyes.
When Joe played this at the Tame Impala concert, I ascended. What one can only begin to describe as elevated, life-changing, never been done before, show-stopping. Fool is another one of my favorite songs, and it kind of, at least the way that I interpreted it, after Half-Life, it still follows that same vein of performing for the world, performing for social media. And I think in this song in particular, it's definitely leaning into what it's like to be in a relationship with somebody, where, you know, because when you are in a healthy relationship, sometimes a not so healthy relationship, you feel like you almost have to entertain the person in front of you, because if you don't entertain the person in front of you, then what else is there? Oh my god, they're gonna leave me. Oh my god, they're gonna go bye-bye. All of their feelings that they had for me are going to just immediately dissipate because I'm not actively doing something to hold their attention. Some of the other things that I wrote down for Fool were, I feel like this song in particular almost addresses how, again, we tend to put on different masks, different faces, and that is a communication term. I'm gonna completely butcher the definition of a face, but a face is almost intentionally something different than who we know we are as a person, and it doesn't even have to be intentionally. It can happen on accident. It can just happen because we feel a need to be somebody different, or we almost feel like we have to perform for different people in our lives. One of the notes I wrote down was like, I love this song from the romantic perspective, because yeah, like, let's do a little deep dive lyrically. That's not right. There's a person behind those eyes. That's not right. Any crack is a sign of lies. That's not cool. Everybody needs a fool. I'll be your fool. I will be your fool. I also find it cool that fool is capitalized in the breakdown. A professional fool. Yes. Just wanting the attention. Wanting to have as much attention as you can. And feeling afraid of people realizing that, oh, I'm actually not the person that I am presenting to myself to the world. I'm actually a secret third thing. Sorry, guys. Okay, moving on. I feel like with On and On, what I really like about this song, I feel like is the most overt song that Joe kind of talks about with what it is like to be online in the age of social media, and almost like the intersection of social media and global events and what happens when those two powers do come together and how we interact with them. Joe has always been vocal about his political views, and that is something that I respect highly from him, because in On and On, let me just read these lyrics. Saw the news, watched a clip, powered down, then it hit. What is real? What is fake? It must be fake. On and on and on and on. Scrolling on and on and on. Feed the algorithm some. On and on. Wait. Your family is in our thoughts. Our heart goes out to you. Say a prayer, light a digital candle, and then scroll away. Something is about to break. The fault line has been fractured. Maybe it's not too late to learn how to love each other. What's it gonna take to change it? Don't you want to save this planet? Blame it on manipulation. We're human after all. I love On and On. It is one of my second favorites off of the album purely for this reason. Because when we are in the world of social media, part of the almost I don't want to say the only route of activism that we have at our fingertips, but it is the most accessible route of activism, is being informed, watching videos, video essays. And I feel like the peak with On and On, after those lyrics, it's almost like when it gets to this something is about to break, it's that feeling that I feel like inevitably does happen when, for example, when there is another school shooting and there's casualties, and it's the question of why can't there be stricter gun control laws in the United States? Clearly what we're doing is not working, and you feel like, you're inching towards that change, but then unfortunately, because of the powers that be, nothing changes. We go back to scrolling on our phone, and the cycle repeats itself. On and On is just so good and just so extremely relevant, because now more than ever, there's that sense of feeling powerless with what we can do, especially with living in a fascist country, with Donald Trump, with a lot of the powers that be, with having to witness the genocide of Palestinians and feeling just so incredibly helpless, knowing that there are things that we can do. There are so many things that we can do by getting involved in the community, calling your senators, writing to your elected officials, voting, but you still can't help but feel helpless and going back, seeing if anything's changed, scrolling on your phone. All right. Wasn't that fun? This is a fun video, guys. And then we have End of Beginning. I liked this song. I liked this song before it blew up on TikTok. That's not me flexing, that's just me stating truth, okay? I really did like End of Beginning because it hit really hard, and I feel like this is a song, the reason why it is blowing up is because it is such a universal feeling that Joe's target audience feels, or not even Joe's target audience, it's the feeling of when you know you're on the cusp of making a very big change in your life, and there is that inevitable hesitation of, I don't know if I can do this. End of Beginning, as I'm sure a lot of people talked about, it talks about, you're saying goodbye to a version of yourself that you didn't realize you were gonna have to say goodbye to. I'm not gonna cry. It's about growing up. End of Beginning is about becoming the person that you were always meant to be. But because you are almost detaching yourself from a younger version of yourself.
But so when you're writing the record, like, does it just flow out of you? Do you know what you're talking about when you're writing it?
Yeah, sometimes. What do you mean, I guess?
For that song in specific, do you understand the story you're telling while you're actually writing it, or is it until you kind of read back the lyrics or hear it that you actually know what is being told?
Kind of like combination of both. I feel like I used to maybe be a little bit more just kind of free association, just like all these different things kind of coming in and then looking back at the songs and kind of being like, oh, I was really singing about this or this. And then for this record in particular, made an effort to maybe really hone in on like a kernel of what it is I'm trying to, like, In the Beginning is a pretty good example. It's like a specific feeling that, you know, I felt within myself that I couldn't really put like a single name on. It's like, okay, that seems like a good and worthwhile thing to like have a whole song about.
In the Beginning gives me the same almost essence of a Rush song that I really like, called Free Will, example A. I lost it. You can choose a ready guide in some celestial voice. If you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. I'm only 24. I have so much life ahead of me. I am very young, despite what 18-year-old me thought being 24 was gonna be. There's still so much of life that I have left to live, even though it feels like I've said goodbye to 1,000 different versions of myself. It is that thing of deciding. No matter what you decide, what you choose, no matter the scale of the decision that you are making, it's still going to have an impact. It's the, what am I going to have for dinner versus, am I going to go to grad school? Am I going to get my PhD? Am I going to go to trade school? Am I going to take a chance and move to Europe and go backpacking for X amount of months with very little money and just let the wind take me where it takes me? Because if you do have the privilege to come face to face with those very big life events, it's those environments that shape you. It's the experiences that shape you, with coming from that, with the fear that inevitably does happen from making that first jump, making that first choice. Hence the chorus that we all know. And when I'm back in Chicago, I feel it. Another version of me, I was in it. I wave goodbye to the end of beginning. Goodbye, goodbye. The biggest thing is when we do make those decisions and, you know, we go somewhere else. We leave home, we move out, and then we come back. And you can't help but have those floating memories of when you were younger and compare yourself to how you are now versus how you were then. The feelings of nostalgia, the feeling of, oh wow, I am a very different person than I was when I was first here. And that's pretty cool that I'm able to look back on that. But it's also a little bit sad. End of Beginning leads us to the next portion of the album. I Want Your Video. The only note that I have for this is it evokes the feeling of somebody coming into your life and just knocking your socks off. I Want Your Video, I feel like, talks about that moment when, especially when you're interested in somebody romantically, and you see them not interacting with you, but interacting with somebody else, and you think, maybe you see that person laugh, and you think, oh, what was funny? What made that person laugh? What's going on inside that person's mind, and wanting to get to know that person, wanting to know what makes them angry, what makes them sad, just all of the little bits all the little bits and bobs that make this person interesting to you. You got your friends on your left and your right. Hey! Like, that's so good. It's such an upbeat song about maybe that feeling of first love, that feeling of the beginning of a really nice connection, and seeing that, like, wanting to get to know that person's inner circle. That leads us into climax. This is the song that I have the most notes on, so bear with me. When we're in a difficult period in our lives, I feel like we have a habit of wanting to go back to an earlier version of ourselves and think, man, life would be easier if I could go back to this time. But in reality, if we did, we would still find things wrong with that moment and look for another moment to go to. The future is scary. That's another theme of this this entire album, because the future means change, and change is scary. Therefore, future is scary. One thing that I don't know if Joe purposefully meant to touch on, but it is something that at least I interpreted it as, is how some people point to certain events that happen in our life as being God's plan, which is fine. That is a totally reasonable way to interpret the things that happen in our life, how they impact us, how they shape us as humans. But sometimes religion isn't enough to answer with those questions. You can still have those beliefs, but you can still have some lingering questions, and you're still left to grapple with your reality and why this is the particular reality that you are living right now. Specifically, what kind of made me interpret climax with that message was this specific verse. Now when the vision shows itself to me, kiss Mother Mary, yes, I close to see. Events unfolding I can't understand, and when I try, it falls right through my hands. In relaxation lately I have found, inside the chaos I can hear a sound. Inside the chatter, a message for me. Unless you're quiet, you will never see. You will never see. So it's just the deja vu of it all, with how the person telling this particular story in climax, they're continuously revisiting these questions, and every time that they think on it, they dwell on it, they're still left with more answers. And it's like, the answer is right within their grasp, but then they lose it. And it's falling into that trap of what happens when we overthink, where it's like, well, if I keep thinking about this thing, then surely I will find the answer at some point. And then it's 3 hours later and you realize that you haven't done anything. It's just the climax of being a person, the climax of being alive and dealing with the fallout of that climax, and just accepting reality, letting go of control, deciding that life is gonna keep happening whether we want it to or not. We just have to let things happen as they come to us. It's like specifically in like our interpersonal lives. The more you ask questions, in reality, the less time that you're actually spending being alive. Climax. Hey, it's a different day. So, right as I started to talk about change and just the second half of Decide, my iPhone's storage ran out. So we're gonna try this again and try finishing up this little review, not an album review, a discussion, if you will. I'm gonna put my little Joe thinking cap back on. Let's do this. And I have my X-Men shirt on, so that's how you know I'm really serious about this. All right, picking up where I left off, change. I've said this about almost every single song that I have talked about with Decide, but change is one of the ones that I connect to almost the same level as End of Beginning. The way that I interpreted it is somebody who is trying to live their life, trying to live a new life that, you know, like the aftermath of following through with a major life change. You draw back into yourself, you have that tendency to maybe dissociate and just float right above a conversation, not really being conscious with what it is you're doing, just trying to make choices and do things just to make the day go by faster. Because if you do pay attention to your life and you do start to be conscious of everything, then you are acknowledging the fact that you are changing. You are actively becoming a different person because of a choice that you made. It means taking ownership of your life and realizing that, oh, it is me. It is just me who really can make these changes. And maybe the fallback or the sort of butterfly effect of those decisions does fall back on me, and I have to take that no matter what happens. And that, again, is super scary and super heavy a lot of the times to have that realization. So the song starts off with, in a conversation, but my mind is out the back door, watching this unfold like I am floating right above it. Jake is on his phone, and I'll admit that I don't love it. I just said that when my friends moved here, I'd interact more. Who am I to judge? I just detach. It might be harder not to tell you, man, what's really going on. In a conversation, and then I'm looking right down on it. Then you pull my body back and whisper in my ear. It's easy to see it all with you. It might be right there. Then we go into the chorus. I think my favorite part lyrically of Change is almost like that last pre-chorus that takes us into the final chorus. But every mistake I've ever made has led me right here. It's easier to refuse to change year after year. Something's happening to me, a change that I can see. I thought that change was bad, but you have changed my mind and put my heart at ease. I don't know what will be. Joe just does such a great job explaining lyrically the difficulty that comes with changing and really deciding to follow through. Again, that's just one of the overarching themes of this album. When I first listened to Change, it truly sounded like nothing I had ever heard before. And this is before I had like really gotten into like LCD Sound System or Tame Impala and all of those kind of like electronically influenced artists. Change just blew my mind with just how the synth was used. I don't know if it was like a heavier synth, if that's even the right terminology. It probably isn't. But I loved it. I loved how, again, how he's able to manipulate music to showcase and highlight certain emotions.
There is no arrival in those songs.
Yeah,
no one's actually landed anywhere in that moment.
It's true.
The whole 9 minutes plus is a search.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Yeah. And I guess this was sort of like a reactionary just against that. So I wanted to kind of like create these kind of shorter pop songs that are just sort of like jammed, like absolutely jammed. Each moment, there's like a little something going on. And so, yeah,
and
that was the
vocally
goal.
really fun as well for you too, because like
Really fun, yeah.
getting to stretch out across your range and like that vocal on and on, you know, what I would consider to be like a, you know, quite a thoughtful kind of borderline R&B pop falsetto vocal, and then you've got Gloom, which is just like very
Yeah, yeah,
very
just kind of
staccato
more
and like
Devo or something inspired.
Yeah.
I think I also kind of going back to music that's eclectic. I also really love performers, vocalists who are really eclectic and using their voice. That's why I like Paul McCartney so much. I feel like talk about a guy who can really
David Byrne.
Yeah, oh my gosh. David Bowie also. Just guys who don't feel the need to, they're not like tied to their sound. It felt like throughout their careers.
They're not afraid of character development.
No. And I'm an actor too, so it's like part of my shtick is like, it really helps me to kind of release from the what should this sound like to what can this kind of sound like.
It's almost like the pressure building up, and it's like when you're almost enlightened about, oh, this is a change, and it's up to me. Like, whatever happens, I have to follow through. Even if I don't know what's gonna happen, it's still a choice that I made, and that's the most important part of it. The realization of that pressure, and then before we get into the chorus, it pulls away for a little bit, and then boom, you're thrown back in to the chaos of coming to terms with that decision that you made that led to this change. His mind. Then change leads us into, is that all it takes? Is that all it takes? Is that all it takes? I love this song sonically because I feel like this, again, just follows through with that pattern of, wait, is that really all it takes to, I don't want to say do something with my life, but to make a change? I just have to do it. I just have to put one foot in front of the other, maybe make a plan for this, or just attempt to follow through, like put myself out there, be vulnerable. That's it? That's really all that it takes? The way that I wrote it down in my notes, it sounds like the feeling of someone accepting that yes, you're acknowledging your errors and moving past them. And yeah, that is part of all that it takes to become the person that you are meant to be. With Is That All It Takes, it's just a really great representation of the human psyche when we do come to realizations, because Is That All It Takes starts off with the gentle, is that all it takes? Is that all it takes? And then you're kind of hit with the beginning of Go For It with the bum, bum, bum. For the storyline of this whole album, I feel like Go For It is really this quintessential ultimate decision moment. It just sounds like the feeling of someone breaking through the wall and realizing that making a huge change will make you feel really weird, but you will ultimately feel better after making that change. Go For It just sounds like how it feels to be at a crossroads in your life. Because you can spend so much time thinking and dwelling, saying, oh yeah, I'm gonna do that. I am gonna do that. I'm just gonna do it at a later time. And then we never do. Most of the time, we never do follow through with it until years later, we look back, then we're stuck with that regret. It's never too late to make a change. It is never too late to make a change. I cannot express that enough. Joe describes it perfectly in this, like, the lyric that I really want to zoom in on real quick. Communication breaks, then trust starts to fray. Unmet needs 40 ways. I hear, go for it. It's a harder thing to do than to say. 1 week and 4 years. You know my ways, I know your fears. But then there's a misunderstanding. What will it take to hear me out? The worst thing that can happen when you're trying to make a change is rejection. That's not the worst thing in the world. It is worth taking that risk. Then that leads us to the conclusion of the album, Slither.
It's growing larger, I'm pushing harder, I'm acting sooner.
Slither, I feel like, is a great conclusion to this album. It's basically saying what Joe has been trying to press upon through this album, I want to say, is embracing the uncertainty. The future can always seem so close, it can always seem so far, and we can use that as an excuse to stall making a decision about our future because we're afraid of the uncertainty. But that's also the best part of life, is because things aren't set in stone. You can have an idea, you can certainly have an idea of how you think your life is going to turn out, but chances are life is going to do its thing and it's not going to turn out that way. And you have to be prepared for that. It's easier to just accept that you aren't going to have complete and total control. Because with Slither specifically, it's kind of closing out that loop of the change that has been happening to whatever perspective the story of Decide is being told from. The desire to be someone, the desire to be somebody. It's that universal feeling that we all want. All of us want to be somebody at the end of the day. We can have these ideas of how we can get to that place, but nothing is going to happen if we don't do anything with it. How Joe describes it best? Let's see. It's growing larger, I'm pushing harder, I'm acting sooner, I'm building to it. It's moving faster, it's coming closer, it's getting nearer, I'm feeling older. And then that repeats. It's growing larger, I'm pushing harder, I'm acting sooner, I'm building to it. I'm working on it, I think I got it. It makes a nice impression, then it slithers away. But I'm working to it, I can't wait for it. We all want to be someone at the end of the day. I feel like that is just reiterating all of the things that I have talked about with this album, when we can feel so close to getting to that place where we want to be in our lives, and then something will happen and we have to take a detour, or we have to make a decision that we didn't think we were going to have to make. But ultimately, that's those kind of things, at least I look at as a gift. Obviously not in the moment a lot of times. Sometimes you are met with a decision that you're forced to make and you think, again, oh, why do I have to make this decision? But then hindsight, of course, is 2020, and you think, oh, well, that decision that I did have to make did actually work in my favor because I am a changed person from it. In the moment, obviously, I didn't think that anything was going to come from it. But now here I am, seeing the aftermath and living through that thing that, hey, maybe I didn't think I was going to live through. That is Decide by Joe. If you joined me for the entirety of this video, huge kudos to you. I truly didn't think anybody was going to make it this far, so appreciate you. Decide by Joe is one of my favorite albums of all time, and this was just an excuse for me to talk about music for a very, very prolonged period of time. Again, a lot of the interpretations that I threw out are just my interpretations. If there are any other interpretations anybody watching this has, I'm more than happy to hear your thoughts and opinions. Good or bad, just be sweet. Be so sweet. Thank you guys so much for watching, and maybe I'll see you in the next video. Okay, bye-bye.